You wake up. The day barely breaks, but your heart already palpitates with anxiety. Your thoughts flutter like frightened crows, late for a ritual nobody scheduled. Before your feet even touch the ground, you're already immersed in this invisible sea of worries, silent to-do lists, and the muffled whispers of the king within. But what if I told you there's a single phrase, simple, silent, symbolic, capable of transforming the texture of this dawning day? It's not magic, it's not a formula, it's a key. A key that unlocks a forgotten portal, access to the inner warrior, as Robert Moore would say. What you do upon awakening reveals the dance of your life, what you attract, what you nurture. For Robert Moore, each awakening is a rebirth, a sacred threshold between the dream world and the construction of reality, a return from the night's journey to the center of the self. In this precious moment, your soul is still receptive, vulnerable to the subtle, to the whisper of the mature masculine energy within you. That's where the mystery lies. Most awaken on autopilot, reacting to the jarring ring of the alarm clock, to the urgent calls of the persona. But there's an immense force, a creative power, in the act of pausing, breathing, and connecting with the invisible, with the lover, with the magician that Robert Moore describes. It's not about religion, but about intention, about starting the day in dialogue, not with the external world, but with your own deep psyche. Robert Moore reminds us that the psyche responds in symbols, synchronicities, small luminous clues on the path of individuation. The first phrase you murmur upon waking is like lighting a candle that illuminates your inner hero's journey throughout the day. This phrase, which we'll reveal here and which you can embrace and transform, doesn't need to be spoken aloud, but it needs to be felt. It needs to spring from the center of your being, from your inner king, as Robert Moore teaches us. It's as if you whispered to life, "I am ready to receive the mystery I don't yet understand, but which comes to meet me, ready to embrace my totality." And do you know what happens when you begin the day with this posture of receptivity, of an active warrior? The unexpected finds you. Chance bends, the pieces fall into place because you stopped reacting and started magnetizing. Instead of being pushed by the world, you begin to radiate your own gravity, the force of yourself. It's not about manipulating destiny, but about getting in tune with the melody of your soul, with the archetype of the magician that Robert Moore so well describes. And if this seems mystical to you, perhaps it is. Robert Moore reminds us that it is in the invisible, in the unconscious, that the visible begins to be woven. So before revealing what this phrase is and why it has such deep resonance, I invite you to a small experiment tomorrow. Upon opening your eyes, before anything else, breathe deeply and say to yourself, "I embrace the hidden beauty in what I don't yet understand, ready to integrate my shadows and embrace my inner king." This is just a suggestion, a starting point for the hero's journey. It carries an essential symbolism, openness to the new, without impositions, without expectations, simply accepting the unexpected as part of the journey of individuation. In the course of this video, we will delve deeper into the meaning of this gesture, Robert Moore's understanding of these small, silent rituals of the psyche, and how this simple practice can generate profound effects on your relationships, creativity, decisions, and even your emotional healing in the integration of your masculine and feminine energies, as he points out. Stay with me until the end, because there you will find your own phrase, the one that resonates with your soul, with your archetype of the lover, and that may forever transform the way you awaken to life, to your heroic journey. And if this beginning already made sense to you, comment below. Today I choose to start differently. Let's see how many of us are ready to turn this invisible key together, to embrace the warrior and the magician within us. Have you ever stopped to observe how you begin your day? It determines more than your mood. It defines your field of perception, what you will notice, what you will ignore, and above all, what you will attract. And this is not superficial self-help. Robert Moore warns us that the initial psychic state of consciousness upon awakening is like the frame of a picture, the portal to the self. Everything that comes after will be interpreted within that frame. Now, reflect with me. What if you shape your day with a phrase of guilt, fear, or haste? "Oh, I'm already late. Another heavy day. I can't take it anymore." These phrases are also rituals, but rituals of shadows, energies of the tyrant and the victim, as Robert describes. More and shadow rituals are treacherous. They disguise themselves as routine, but contaminate the entire day with a dark lens, with the energy of the shadow. Robert Moore explains that the unconscious is not just a repository of memories. It's a co-author of your reality, a space of constantly moving archetypal energies. It works with symbolic associations, rhythms, inner images that you cultivate over time. And what you say upon waking is the first command you offer it, the first invocation to your inner king. If you awaken saying, "This is going to be hard," the unconscious doesn't judge. It simply obeys, begins selecting experiences that confirm that expectation, that feed the shadow of the tyrant and the victim. It's as if you put on glasses the color of your first sentence. Therefore, the purpose of this video is a symbolic shift, a silent ritual that carries the force of intention, the energy of the warrior. But be warned, this practice isn't a trick to attract instant miracles. It's a repositioning of your center, a return to the strength of the self. You stop starting the day from the outside in, reacting, and begin starting from the inside out, offering presence. And that changes everything. The phrase you choose upon awakening is like an energetic seal. It could be something like, "Everything that comes my way today finds me at peace in harmony with my inner king." Or, "I am willing to see beauty in the unexpected, with the wisdom of the magician." Or even, "My heart knows the way, even when my mind hesitates, guided by the strength of my warrior." Notice that none of these phrases try to force anything. They are invitations, and this is essential because, according to Robert Moore, the unconscious doesn't respond to impositions, but to permissions. And when you repeat a phrase with presence day after day, something curious happens. It becomes a symbol. And symbols, as Robert Moore teaches us, are bridges between what you are and what you can still become. Portals to individuation. You're not just talking, you're activating a psychic movement. People who have adopted this practice report subtle yet profound changes. They begin to notice synchronicities that previously went unnoticed, feel more serene in the face of challenges, or simply have more clarity about what truly matters. Because it's not the world that changes, it's the perspective, and the perspective transforms everything. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into what Robert Moore calls transition rituals, the portals to the integration of the psyche. The moment of awakening is one of the most powerful psychic portals of the day. But before we continue, answer in the comments below. What phrase do you want to start saying every day? Write it as a silent commitment to yourself, a micro-act of inner revolution, a step on your journey of individuation. Robert Moore observed that human beings experience various invisible rites throughout the day, transitions that, although small, carry a profound symbolism. Awakening is one of these transitions. It's the end of a nightly journey through the unconscious, a return to the self. That's why he saw awakening as a rite of passage, from shadow to light, from inner to outer, from dream to action. But what's the problem today? Most people wake up as if they're leaping from an emotional abyss onto a conveyor belt, disconnected from their inner king. Out of nowhere, they're already running. There's no pause, no bridge, no ritual, only reactivity. And without ritual, the soul feels lost. The body may be awake, but the spirit is still asleep. That's why this small gesture, pausing, breathing, and uttering a symbolic phrase, is more than poetry. It's deep psychology. It's a reunion with the soul, an adjustment in the axis of consciousness. Robert Moore knew that these silent rituals are not superfluous. On the contrary, they are what delineate the contours of your identity, the path to individuation. They remind you that you are more than a body in motion. You are a soul in process. Have you observed how monks awaken in silence, with reverence, with conscious breathing? They don't rush to check their phones or complain about life. They know that the way they awaken is the way they live. And you don't need to live in a monastery to do the same. 10 seconds of presence before getting out of bed is enough. And one phrase, just one, that today moves me towards my wholeness, that invokes my inner king. Or perhaps, that I may be ready to embrace the warrior and the magician within me. Learn to hear what the day wants to teach me, or even if I don't understand, I trust. These phrases repeated with presence, become anchors for the soul. And anchors don't prevent the storm, but they prevent you from getting lost in it. Robert Moore explained that there are symbols, archetypal energies, that act as seeds in the soil of the psyche, in the inner garden. They don't bear fruit instantly, but over time, with due attention to the inner king, they blossom in wisdom and transformation, integrating mature masculine energy. They don't undermine immediately, but prepare the psychic soil for the self's manifestation. Ritualistic repetition is like gentle rain, the blessing of the inner father, nurturing the seed planted in that soil, allowing it to take deep root, and gradually something blossoms within and without you. A new perspective on life, a new understanding, a new life force, a new masculinity. And there's more. When you begin your day with this conscious gesture, you awaken the archetype of the guardian of the threshold, the inner warrior. This is that inner aspect, the mature masculine energy that doesn't just go through life any which way, but chooses how to enter each precious moment with focus and discipline. This archetype, the warrior, resides within each of us. He protects our vital energy, discerning what enters, what remains, what departs, defending our inner garden. Upon waking, you find yourself at this threshold and have two choices. Either cross it with the haste and confusion of the external world, falling into the trap of the pure eternus, or cross it with the clarity and intention of the soul, embracing the inner king. A simple phrase, spoken with the presence of the heart, with the strength of the warrior, can be the key to this sacred crossing, honoring the inner lover. Further on, we will explore how these small rituals connect directly with the archetypes that Robert Moore describes so beautifully: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover, and how you can awaken them upon waking each day, integrating masculine energy. But first, I invite you to reflect. Do you usually awaken with the quietude of the soul, connected to yourself, or do you already surrender to the whirlwind of the day, lost in the shadow of the pure? Your answer may inspire other men to rethink their own awakenings as well. Robert Moore left us a map, not of a physical place, but of an inner territory, the map of the hero's journey to mature masculinity. And within this map, there are symbolic figures, archetypal energies, representing the energies of our psyche: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And believe me, they all awaken with you. The difference lies in inviting them into your day, honoring their presence, or ignoring them in the rush, succumbing to the shadow. When you wake up and utter a phrase with intention, you activate one of these archetypes, accessing its power. Let's understand how this manifests. Imagine that by saying, "Today I act with courage, even with fear," you are invoking the archetype of the inner warrior, affirming your strength and discipline. And this warrior is not about winning external battles, but about overcoming yourself, surpassing yourself, breaking free from the cycle of "I'll do it later," the trap of the pure, and entering the vibration of "Today I choose to go," embracing the inner king. Now, if you awaken, saying, "May I know how to care for what matters, including myself," you activate the inner lover, nurturing your compassion and creativity. This archetype represents your ability to regenerate your vital energy, to set boundaries without guilt, to act with kindness without annulling yourself. And this transforms your relationship with others and with yourself, integrating mature masculine energy. And if your phrase is, "Today I listen before judging, I observe before reacting," guess what? The inner magician, with his wisdom and intuition, begins to guide your journey. This is the archetype of the broader vision, of silence before the answer, of deep listening before the hasty conclusion. It is he who prevents you from being just another piece spinning in the incessant noise of the world, anchored in your essence. Robert Moore understood that these archetypes are not inventions, but real structures of the soul, energies that inhabit the unconscious. And the more you evoke them, the more they come alive in you, guiding you on the journey of masculinity. And the moment of awakening is like the opening of a curtain on a sacred stage in the inner garden. You choose who will enter the scene first: fear, haste, anxiety, the shadows of the poor, or the silent warrior, the gentle lover, the attentive magician, the strength of the inner king. The phrase you choose upon waking is your invitation. It determines the tone of the play that will unfold throughout the day, the journey of your inner hero. And the most beautiful thing is, this choice is yours every morning. Even when everything seems the same, you can start differently, honoring yourself. There are days when the phrase needs to be firm. Today I respect myself, even if the world doesn't understand the strength of the warrior. Other days it will be gentler. I don't need to have all the answers now, the wisdom of the magician. And sometimes just a thank you for this new beginning is enough, the gratitude of the lover. But the essential thing is the conscious choice, the awakening of the inner king. Don't awaken automatically, lost in the shadow. Don't surrender your day to external noise before listening to your own soul, the voice of the self. Because as Robert Moore taught us, what you ignore within yourself ultimately becomes your destiny. And if all this seems new to you, begin. A sentence, a sigh, an inward glance, a step towards the inner garden. Because when the soul feels remembered, it begins to respond, and the unexpected synchronicity finds its way. If this resonates with you, share your experience. Today, I chose the tone of my day, and I share this message with someone who needs to remember that there's still time to begin with lightness, integrating masculine energy. There's something magical that happens when you begin to listen to yourself before the world, to listen to the voice of the self. Something shifts in your inner rhythm. It's as if you stop running and begin walking with Robert Moore on the journey to mature masculinity. He understood that true transformation doesn't happen in life's grand turns, but in small gestures imbued with intention, in rituals that honor the archetypes. And the way you wake up is the inaugural gesture of everything, the first step in the inner garden. But why does this truly work? What's the mechanism behind it? Because the unconscious doesn't operate with rational logic. It responds to symbols, images, and repetitions, to archetypal energies, and a phrase spoken daily upon waking isn't just a phrase, it becomes a mantra, a code that reorganizes psychic energy, an invitation to the archetypes. It's as if you're saying to your soul, to yourself, we're in this together. And the unconscious, in turn, responds with synchronicities, with subtle signs, with small miracles disguised as chance. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to radiate an inner light? How everything seems to flow more easily in their lives? Often it's not luck. It's alignment with the soul, with the self. They've learned, consciously or unconsciously, to create small rituals that reorder their energy before even getting out of bed, to honor their archetypes. They don't start the day putting out external fires, but by lighting an inner flame, the flame of the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And that flame transforms everything. Now breathe with me for a moment. Close your eyes, or just imagine, you wake up, the world is still silent. You feel the air coming in, and before you move, you say silently, "Today I am presence, not haste," or even without knowing what comes, I proceed with courage, or perhaps I am here, and that is already a sacred beginning. Done, you've just created a space, a small altar within yourself, a place where the world hasn't yet shouted, where you haven't yet lost yourself in others, a refuge in your inner garden. This space is your origin, your starting point, your root. Robert Moore said that the further we go in the external world, the more we need deep internal roots. And this morning phrase is the seed of that root. It anchors you, centers you, reminds you of what truly matters, even when everything around you seems to pull you away. And understand, this doesn't mean the day will be light, calm, or perfect, but it means that no matter what happens, you started from within, connected to yourself. And that completely changes the quality of energy you bring to situations. You are no longer just a reaction. You are the conscious choice, the manifestation of the inner king. Now I invite you to reflect. What was the first thing you thought of this morning when you woke up? Was it fear, tiredness, haste, or was it presence, acceptance, hope? Write in the comments how your awakening was today. And if you want, choose a new phrase for tomorrow, a new invitation to your archetypes. Who knows? It might become your new sacred ritual, another step on the journey of masculinity. Further on, we will explore why Robert Moore also confirms the impact of these practices and how the psyche interprets these morning commands profoundly, shaping even your mood, your creativity, and your resilience throughout the day. Now let's bring something that might surprise you. Robert Moore, with his deep wisdom about archetypes and the masculine journey, already intuited what science is beginning to understand now. Current studies in neuroscience show that the brain upon waking enters a state called reverse hypnagogia, a transition from unconsciousness to consciousness, a portal to the inner garden, delicate between sleep and wakefulness. In this liminal moment, brainwaves slow down, receptive, like fertile soil awaiting the seed of intention. What you plant there, a phrase, an image, an intention, can blossom throughout the day. This means that your first words, your first thought, your first emotion possess a disproportionate weight. It's the first step on the warrior's path, the initial step on the hero's journey. It determines not only the destination but the entire course of the psyche. And the most beautiful part, you can consciously choose this step. Robert Moore shows us that brain imaging reveals that positive affirmations upon waking activate areas linked to planning, empathy, and emotional regulation. Fear-based or demanding phrases, however, activate the alert system, leaving you more reactive, anxious, and depleted from the start. The choice of phrase isn't merely symbolic, it's neurological, an alchemy between body and psyche. Robert Moore would say this confirms the profound unity of being. The unconscious and the body aren't separate, they dance the archetypal dance of wholeness. The language you offer upon waking. The soul dances a silent melody, and the inner warrior moves to this subtle rhythm. We're not talking about magic, but words that echo as symbols, portals to the archetypal realm. Robert Moore reminds us that the symbol is the very language of the soul, the whisper of the unconscious that nourishes the inner hero. Upon waking, when you murmur, "I accept what comes with lightness," this message transcends the intellect, reaching the depths of the psyche. These aren't mere words but balm for the warrior soul, a permission for the body to relax, for resistance to dissolve. The day begins with a wider inner space, a sacred space for the unexpected, for life to pulse with authenticity. It's not about reciting phrases like an automaton, but finding one that resonates with your essence, that vibrates with the truth of yourself. Repeat it with the reverence of someone opening a window to the light of the warrior soul. Consider some suggestions, adapting them to your own morning ritual. Today I make space for what is real, allowing the inner truth, the voice of the self, to emerge. May my warrior presence be stronger than my fear, nurturing the archetypal courage residing in your core. Even without understanding, I walk with the hero's confidence, embracing life's mystery with serenity. Choose the phrase that touches you most, or create your own, as long as it's a sincere echo of your warrior soul. It doesn't need to be overly optimistic, just honest. A genuine expression of the self. The unconscious recognizes truth and responds only to what is authentically felt, to what resonates with your essence. Robert Moore guides us to expand this practice beyond waking, permeating other transitions throughout the day. The start of work, silent pauses, the evening's quiet. Each beginning and each end carries a profound symbolic force, a portal to the unconscious. Perhaps you already notice the impact of this simple gesture. A phrase, a moment, a pause before the whirlwind of daily life. This silent ritual should accompany you throughout the day, in the small re-beginnings. Robert Moore reminds us of the psychological portals we cross daily. The first coffee, the first glance, the first silence, the transition between tasks, the closing of eyes before sleep. All these moments are precious opportunities to reconnect with your center, with the self, with the totality of the psyche. By incorporating this symbolic gesture, your life acquires rhythm, an inner pulse emanating from your warrior essence. You cease being a mere echo of the world and compose your own inner melody. Before work, whisper, "May I not lose myself in urgencies, but remember the essential." Before a challenging conversation, may I listen beyond words, may I listen with the warrior heart. Before eating, may this nourishment nourish all levels of my being. And before sleep, I surrender what I cannot control. May the unconscious tend to the rest. Spoken with presence, these phrases become portals to the sacred, opening spaces of consciousness. They reconnect you with the self, reminding you that you don't need to get lost in the periphery. Robert Moore teaches us that the self reveals itself in the spaces between, in the intervals, but to perceive it, one must cultivate inner availability. This availability is nourished by small gestures repeated with intention, like these phrases whispered to our warrior soul. And there's a curious detail. When you begin this practice, the people around you sense, even without understanding, your new presence, your different listening, the emanation of yourself. This presence doesn't come from outside, but from the ritual with your own soul. Waking and whispering a phrase is the beginning of the hero's journey. The true awakening is remembering throughout the day that you can begin again, that you don't need a grand transformation to change your inner climate. Simply pause, breathe, and find the words that bring you back to your center, to the self. If this text is resonating with you, reflect. My day is made of re-beginnings. In the next part, we will explore how this practice transforms relationships, especially those with tension, because when you change the beginning, you transform the connection. Observe how conflicts begin before the first word. The tension hangs in the air, look at the way you wake up, how it infects your coffee, your touch, your presence. The silent ritual takes on a new dimension, reorganizing your mind and purifying your relational field. Robert Moore reminds us that how you meet yourself upon waking determines your encounter with others. He who awakens at war with himself wages war with the world. But he who awakens in inner alliance invites peace. It doesn't require a speech to transform your bonds. Sometimes changing the first sentence is enough to alter the tone of your interactions. Observe the difference between "I don't want to fight today" and "Today I will listen more and react less." The first still resides in struggle. The second opens itself to the other. The morning phrase becomes the energy you emanate, permeating your gaze, your touch, your silence. People perceive this subtle shift. Robert Moore teaches us that every relationship is a symbolic field, an invisible exchange of psychic content. What you bring to the encounter begins before you see the other's face. It begins in how you treat yourself upon waking. Imagine waking up with haste, frustration. That's the energy you'll bring to the table, and the other will feel it, even if disguised. But if you awaken with a phrase of presence, of openness, it's as if your body says, "Today I am truly here." Imagine waking up and saying, "Today I make space for the other to be as they are." Or, "I don't need to win, I want to understand." Or even, "My peace is worth more than the last argument." Bring that energy to a challenging conversation, to a silent exchange. Try it with someone who irritates you, with that relative who always tests you. Notice the difference. You cease to be mere reaction and become consciousness, and you don't need to wait for the other to change. That is your greatest power. Your silent change alters the relational field. Sometimes the simple fact that you begin differently is enough for the other to perceive that something has changed. Robert Moore reminds us of the importance of inner work for personality development, of the need to integrate the shadow to achieve the totality of being. Awakening, that brief and sacred moment of connection with the self, is your daily opportunity to achieve this reunion with your deepest essence. If this text is helping you to see your relationships with new eyes, reflect, "Today I begin differently," and that changes everything, opening yourself to the transformative energy of the inner warrior. In the next part, we will explore how the ritual of the phrase upon waking can help you navigate difficult moments, connecting with the strength of the magician archetype, especially those days when everything seems heavy, confusing, or meaningless. Because even on dark days, this gesture carries an inner light, the divine spark that resides in each of us, as Robert Moore emphasized in his teachings. There are days when we wake up with the weight of the world on our chest without a specific reason. Sometimes it's just accumulated fatigue, a nameless sadness, an emptiness that seems immense, a reflection of disconnection with the inner lover. On these days, the silent ritual of the phrase, upon waking, becomes more than a gesture. It becomes a hug for the soul, a balm for suffering, a reminder of our inherent capacity for healing. Robert Moore understood that the journey of the soul, like the hero's journey, is not a straight line. It is made of cycles, spirals, long nights and slow dawns, encounters with the shadow and integration of the light. He warned us, guided by the wisdom of the archetypes, about the danger of wanting to get out of the dark too quickly. of feigning light when we are still traversing the shadow, denying the importance of the individuation process. Therefore, on these challenging days, the phrase you murmur upon waking doesn't need to be positive. It needs to be honest, a reflection of your inner truth, an echo of the voice of yourself. You can wake up and say to yourself, "Today I accept my vulnerability and connect with the strength of my center." The soul whispers when the day awakens, echoing the voice of the archetypes. And today, even in difficulty, I offer myself permission to feel, honoring the sensitivity of the lover. Even without the full strength of the warrior, I proceed in slow steps, welcoming fragility. For love, an emanation of the divine lover, does not demand well-being, it simply is. And in this act of self-compassion, something subtle yet profound begins to bloom, like a seed germinating in the fertile earth of the soul. The aggressiveness of the king's demands quiets down, making room for the truth of acceptance. And the psyche, in its innate wisdom, responds. The pain persists, but finds its place, a space to breathe. What hurts is not the sadness itself, but the distancing from ourselves, the escape from what cries out to be heard, the refusal to embrace the totality of being, as Robert Moore taught us. The phrase of the morning these days becomes a beacon, guided by the wisdom of the magician archetype. I am still here, present with myself, anchored in the reality of my being. Robert Moore reminds us that all pain carries symbolism, a whisper from the unconscious, that instead of punishing, seeks to awaken us to what we ignore, to the shadow that needs to be integrated. By repeating a phrase upon waking, we open a channel to this inner listening, to the voice of the archetypes, and perhaps, in the silence, the message of the pain will reveal itself. It's not about escaping the shadow, but illuminating it with the lantern of consciousness, with the strength of the spiritual warrior. And this lantern can be just a whispered phrase in the darkness, the choice to continue, a gesture of self-kindness. Don't seek superhuman strength upon awakening, but full presence, connection with the self. Tell yourself, today I simply exist, and that is enough. Notice then how the unexpected manifests, an insight, a synchronicity, a gesture of affection, not as magic, but as a response to your courage to be present, to connect with the power of the archetypes. If you have already traversed the darkness and chosen to begin again, share your light. Even in the dark, I lit a light, inspiring others to walk the path of individuation. Your phrase may be the breath of life someone needs. And in the final part, we will unite awakening, symbol, unconscious, archetypes, and practice in a closing that leaves you with a question and a new path to inhabit your own rebeginning. Breathe deeply and reconnect with the journey so far. Awakening is not just opening your physical eyes, but opening a portal to the soul, to the self, which reveals itself, vulnerable and receptive between dream and day, between conscious and unconscious. Robert Moore saw this moment as sacred, an opportunity to break free from repetitive patterns, from the shackles of the persona, and choose a new starting point, more conscious, more integrated with the totality of being. And transformation can reside in a minimal gesture, a phrase, a choice, a silent intention. In this simplicity lies an inner revolution. By awakening with presence, you modify the vibration of your day, radiating it to your body, mind, relationships, and the world. Autopilot gives way to purpose, to the strength of the inner king, even in small things. The phrase itself matters less than the space it creates. The listening, the pause, the kindness of receiving oneself with love, with the compassion of the lover. You deserve this welcome. We all deserve it. Upon awakening tomorrow, there may still be tiredness, fear, doubts. But if you find the courage to whisper, I am here and I am alive, the rebeginning already starts. Something transforms in this reunion with yourself, and this reunion is the source of everything. Robert Moore revealed to us, through the study of archetypes, that the soul responds to the call. The phrase you whisper upon waking is that call, a symbolic gesture of faith, of openness, of readiness for the path, even without all the answers. And the unexpected arrives, not as a thunderous miracle, but as a subtle, serene, precise response. Now the journey is yours. guided by the wisdom of the archetypes. Share the phrase you chose to illuminate your days or the one that resonated in your heart. If you wish to illuminate the path of others, offer this video to those who awaken in the darkness. And for you who remained until here, a symbolic gift. Comment on the phrase that transforms you and allow life to read it as a sign of your readiness. Readiness to align with the self, to open to the totality of being, to allow yourself until the next awakening. Remember, when you start the day differently, connected with the archetypes, the day responds differently to you.